You open your eyes to the gentle hush of dawn, the kind of morning that seems to have been painted in watercolor, soft, blurry, and a little bit smug about how peaceful it is. The air is cool, scented with wild thyme and the faintest whiff of sheep, which, in ancient Greece, is the equivalent of a luxury spa candle. You are not a god, not a king, not even a particularly important merchant. You are, for tonight, a hero, though, to be honest, you're the sort of hero who misplaces things. Sandals, mostly. But hey, who hasn't lost a sandal or two in their lifetime, right? We'll get to that. You stretch, feeling the rough linen of your tunic, and listen to the distant, lazy clatter of a lyre. Somewhere, a rooster is already regretting its life choices. The world is waking up, but you, dear listener, are just beginning to drift. The sun is a polite guest, peeking over the olive groves, not yet ready to scorch the earth or your delicate, sleep-seeking eyelids. You hear the river nearby, its voice a low, gossipy murmur. Rivers in Greece are notorious for their opinions, and this one is no exception. You won't make it through this day, not because of monsters or angry gods, but because, let's face it, sleep is a far more powerful force than any hydra or minotaur. If you do manage to stay awake, you'll be the first. Most heroes, after all, are famous for their naps. Odysseus took a 10-year detour to get some shut-eye. Hercules, that guy could sleep through a thunderstorm. So, if your eyelids start to droop, don't fight it. The gods themselves would approve. Before we wander too far down this dusty road, let's take a moment. If you're enjoying this gentle stroll through myth and misadventure, please tap the like button softly. Subscribe for more stories that are almost guaranteed to outlast your attention span. And if you're still awake, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm always curious who's drifting off in Tokyo, or who's wide awake in Toronto, or who's just pretending to sleep in Thessaloniki. Now let's relax on tonight's ride. You're in ancient Greece, a land where sandals are more valuable than gold, at least if you're the sort of person who loses them. The hero of our story is not Hercules, not Perseus, nor even the man who invented democracy and then immediately regretted it. No, tonight you are Jason. Yes, that Jason. The one with the Argonauts, the golden fleece, and, most importantly, a pair of sandals that are about to go missing in the most embarrassing way possible. Jason, a legendary hero in Greek mythology, was known for his quest for the golden fleece and his leadership of the Argonauts. But tonight, he's about to become known for something else entirely. You walk along the riverbank, feeling the pebbles press into your feet. The water is clear, cold, and judgmental. Rivers in Greek myth are never just rivers. They're gods, or at least minor deities with a flair for drama. This one is the Anavros, a stream with a reputation for being both beautiful and petty. You kneel to wash your hands, and the river gurgles in a way that sounds suspiciously like laughter. You can't help but chuckle at its cheekiness. You ignore it. You're a hero, after all. Heroes don't argue with rivers. Not out loud, anyway. Here's your first central historical fact. In ancient Greece, rivers were often personified as gods or spirits, and people would leave offerings, such as honey, wine, and sometimes even a lock of hair, to appease them. It was a bit like tipping your barista, except the barista could flood your crops if you forgot. Scholars still debate whether these offerings were more about genuine belief or just a clever way to avoid soggy sandals. Speaking of sandals, you glance down and realize, with a sinking feeling, that one of yours is missing. Not both, just one. The left one, naturally, because the left foot is always the troublemaker. You look back along the path, but the sandal is nowhere to be seen. The river, meanwhile, is suspiciously quiet, as if it's trying not to laugh. You sigh. This is not how heroes are supposed to start their quests. You're supposed to have a sword, a shield, and maybe a talking horse. Not a single, lonely sandal and a river with a sense of humor. You consider your options. You could wade into the river and look for the sandal, but the water is cold, and your dignity is already hanging by a thread. You could go barefoot, but the pebbles are sharp, and you have the arches of a poet, not a warrior. Or you could blame the river, which is the most Greek solution possible. When in doubt, blame a minor deity. It's a national pastime. You can't help but find the absurdity in this situation, and it brings a smile to your face. As you stand there, pondering your next move, a shepherd ambles by, leading a flock of sheep that look as bored as you feel. He glances at your single sandal and raises an eyebrow. "Lost something?" he asks, in the tone of someone who has never lost anything more critical than a particularly stubborn goat. You nod, trying to look heroic and failing spectacularly. The shepherd shrugs. "Rivers are tricky," he says. "Last week, my son stole my hat. Never got it back. Now I just let the sun burn my scalp." Builds character. You thank him, though you're not sure for what. The sheep, meanwhile, seem to be judging you. One of them bleats in a way that sounds suspiciously like, "Rookie mistake." You try to ignore it, but it's hard to feel heroic when you're being heckled by livestock. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some parts of ancient Greece, sheep were believed to be able to predict the weather. If they huddled together, rain was coming. If they scattered, sunshine. If they mocked you for losing your sandal, well, that was probably just personal. This belief in the weather-predicting abilities of sheep was so strong that it even influenced the way people interacted with them. So, when the sheep seem to be judging you and one of them bleats in a way that sounds suspiciously like, "Rookie mistake," it's not just your imagination. They're playing their part in this ancient Greek drama. You take a deep breath, feeling the morning sun warm your face. The day stretches ahead, full of promise and a fair amount of embarrassment. But that's the thing about Greek myths. They're not just about glory and monsters and impossible quests. They're about losing your sandal, blaming a river, and learning to laugh at yourself. Because in the end, even heroes have off days. So, as you set off down the road, 1 foot shod, 1 foot bare, remember, the journey is long, the river is petty, and your sandal is probably halfway to the sea by now. But that's okay. You're a hero after all, and heroes always find a way, even if it's just learning to walk a little lopsided. You hobble along the riverbank, the morning sun now a little bolder, as if it's decided to watch your sandal-less journey for its amusement. The grass is cool and damp beneath your bare foot, and every pebble feels like a tiny, ancient critic. You try to walk with dignity, but it's hard to look heroic when you're limping like a philosopher who's just realized he left his scrolls at home. The river, meanwhile, continues its low, gurgling commentary, occasionally splashing as if to say, "Still missing something?" You pass a cluster of wildflowers, poppies, anemones, and a few stubborn dandelions that refuse to be poetic. The air is thick with the scent of thyme and the distant promise of olives. You hear the faint sound of a flute, played by someone who values enthusiasm over skill. It's the kind of music that makes you want to nap or at least reconsider your life choices. You wonder if the gods are listening, and if so, whether they're rolling their eyes. As you walk, you recall that in ancient Greece, sandals weren't just footwear, they were a symbol of status. The fancier the sandal, the more critical the wearer. Some were dyed purple, the color of royalty, while others were decorated with gold or tiny bells. You, of course, had the standard-issue hero sandals. Sturdy, practical, and, as it turns out, highly susceptible to river-related mishaps. Historians still debate whether heroes wore such elaborate footwear or if that's just what the poets wanted everyone to believe. After all, nothing says epic journey like a pair of shoes you're afraid to get dirty. You spot a fisherman sitting on a rock, his line dangling lazily in the water. He looks up as you approach, taking in your single sandal and your slightly sheepish expression. "Lose something?" he asks, with the kind of dry humor that comes from years of watching heroes make questionable decisions. You nod and he grins. "Rivers are thieves," he says, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "They'll take anything that isn't nailed down. Last month, my mom stole my lunch. Bread, cheese, the whole lot. I had to eat olives for a week." His laughter echoes across the river, and you can't help but join in. You sit beside him, grateful for the excuse to rest your foot. The fisherman offers you a fig, which you accept with the solemnity of someone who hasn't had breakfast. You chew slowly, savoring the sweetness, and listen to the river's endless monologue. The fisherman tells you that, in his village, people believe the river is home to a mischievous spirit named Pot Amos. Pot Amos is said to collect lost things, sandals, hats, even the occasional goat, and hide them in his underwater palace. The villagers leave offerings of bread and honey on the riverbank, hoping to appease him. Sometimes, if they're lucky, their lost items wash up downstream, a little soggy but otherwise unharmed. His words carry a wisdom that makes you feel a little lighter, a little more hopeful. You thank the fisherman and stand, feeling a little more hopeful. Maybe your sandal isn't lost forever. It could be on a brief vacation, enjoying the sights and sounds of the river's mysterious depths. You continue your journey, limping a little less, buoyed by the thought that even lost things can find their way home. As you walk, you pass a grove of olive trees, their silvery leaves shimmering in the breeze. You remember that olives were considered sacred in ancient Greece, a gift from the goddess Athena herself. The trees are old, their trunks twisted and gnarled, as if they've been keeping secrets for centuries. You pause to rest in their shade, feeling the coolness seep into your bones. The ground is soft here, and you're tempted to lie down and nap, but the thought of your missing sandal keeps you moving. You reach a small bridge, its stones worn smooth by generations of travelers. The river flows beneath, sparkling in the sunlight. You lean over the edge, peering into the water, half expecting to see your sandal floating by, waving cheerfully. Instead, you see a school of fish darting among the rocks, their scales flashing like tiny coins. You wonder if they've seen your sandal, and if so, whether they're using it as a makeshift playground. The bridge, with its history and its sacredness, commands a certain respect, and you cross it with a sense of reverence. Here's your central historical fact. Bridges in ancient Greece were often considered sacred spaces, places where the mortal world and the divine intersected. People would pause before crossing, offering a prayer or a coin to the river god. Some bridges even had small shrines built into their arches, just in case the gods were feeling particularly nosy. Scholars still debate whether these rituals were meant to ensure safe passage or to appease the local spirits, who were known for their unpredictable moods. You cross the bridge, feeling a little lighter, as if the act of crossing has somehow shifted your luck. On the other side, you find a small shrine, its stones covered in moss and lichen. The shrine is a simple structure, a few weathered rocks arranged in a circle, but it exudes a sense of ancient wisdom. Someone has left a handful of wildflowers and a tiny clay figurine, a sheep of all things. You smile, remembering the judgmental flock from earlier. Maybe the sheep are in on the joke. You pause to leave your offering. A pebble, smooth and round, plucked from the riverbank. It's not much, but it's a gesture, a way of saying, I'm here, I'm trying, and yes, I'd like my sandal back. You place the pebble carefully among the other offerings, feeling a sense of peace settle over you. The shrine seems to approve, or at least it doesn't object. You take that as a good sign. As you continue down the road, you can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here you are, a hero on a quest, and your greatest challenge so far has been a missing sandal and a river with a sense of humor. But that's the beauty of Greek myths. They remind us that even the most minor setbacks can lead to unexpected adventures. And sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. You walk on, the sun climbing higher, the river fading into the distance. Your foot is sore, your pride a little bruised, but your spirit is unbroken. After all, you're a hero. And heroes, as everyone knows, are experts at making the best of a bad situation, even if it means walking a mile in someone else's shoes. Or, in your case, just the one. You follow the winding road, the landscape opening up into rolling hills dotted with cypress trees, and the occasional goat who looks like it's seen too much. The sky is a gentle blue, the kind that makes you want to write poetry or, at the very least, a strongly worded letter to the river about its sandal-stealing habits. The air is alive with the hum of cicadas, their chorus rising and falling like a lullaby for the perpetually tired. You walk on, your single sandal slapping the ground with every step, a metronome for your meandering thoughts. As you round a bend, you spot a small village nestled in the valley below. The houses, whitewashed and adorned with terracotta roofs, exude a charm that instantly enchants you. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, and somewhere, a dog barks with the enthusiasm of someone who's just discovered their tale. You make your way down the hill, careful not to trip over any loose stones or your own feet. The villagers glance up as you approach, their eyes lingering on your mismatched footwear. You offer a sheepish wave, which seems to be the unofficial greeting of sandal-challenged heroes everywhere. You pass a group of women gathered around a well, their laughter ringing out like bells. They're drawing water, gossiping about the latest news, who's getting married, who's lost a goat, who's been seen talking to a remarkably handsome fisherman. One of them notices your bare foot and grins. "Lost a sandal, have you?" she calls out, her tone equal parts sympathy and amusement. You nod and she shakes her head. "Happens to the best of us. My cousin once lost both shoes and had to walk home in her husband's tunic. He never let her forget it." The warmth in her voice makes you feel instantly welcomed. You can't help but smile. There's a comfort in knowing that even in a world of gods and monsters, the most significant embarrassment is still losing your shoes in public. You draw water from the well, the bucket creaking as it rises. The water is cold and clear, and you splash some on your face, feeling the fatigue of the morning begin to fade. The women offer you a piece of bread, still warm from the oven, and you accept gratefully. It's soft and fragrant, with a hint of honey. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, and listen as the women share stories of their misadventures. Here's your central historical fact. In ancient Greek villages, wells were more than just sources of water. They were social hubs, places where news was exchanged, alliances were formed, and the occasional marriage proposal was floated, sometimes literally, if the suitor was particularly nervous. Wells were often dedicated to local nymphs, who were believed to protect the water and, occasionally, play tricks on those who forgot to leave an offering. Historians still debate whether these nymphs were seen as benevolent guardians or just another excuse for why your bucket mysteriously disappeared. One of the women, an older lady with a twinkle in her eye, leans in and whispers, "If you want your sandal back, you'll need to make peace with the river. They say it only returns what it's taken if you ask nicely, and maybe leave a little something behind." She winks, as if she's sharing a secret with the gods themselves. You thank her, tucking the advice away for later. After all, it's not every day you get tips on negotiating with a body of water. You wander through the village, taking in the sights and sounds. Children chase each other through the streets, their laughter echoing off the walls. A baker sets out trays of fresh bread, the smell so inviting you consider losing your other sandal just for an excuse to linger. A potter shapes clay on a spinning wheel, his hands moving with the practiced grace of someone who's spent a lifetime coaxing beauty from mud. You pause to watch, captivated by the intricate designs taking shape under his skilled hands. Here's your obscure cultural fact. Pottery was a significant art form in ancient Greece, and each region had its distinctive style. Some pots were decorated with scenes of heroes and gods, while others featured more practical designs, like instructions for making wine, or, in one memorable case, a detailed diagram of how to tie a sandal. Scholars still debate whether this was meant as a helpful guide or a subtle jab at forgetful heroes. You leave the potter's workshop and find a quiet spot beneath a fig tree. The shade is cool, and the leaves rustle softly in the breeze. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the village wash over you. It's easy to forget in moments like this that you're supposed to be on a quest. The world feels small and safe, a place where the greatest danger is a missing sandal and the only monsters are the ones in bedtime stories. You open your eyes and notice a small, scruffy dog sitting nearby, watching you with the intensity of a philosopher contemplating the meaning of life, or at least the possibility of a snack. You toss it a crumb of bread, and it wags its tail, clearly approving of your generosity. The dog follows you as you stand, its loyalty easily won by the scent of carbohydrates. You set off together, leaving the village behind, your new companion trotting at your side. As you walk, you can't help but laugh at the absurdity of your situation. Here you are, a hero with one sandal, a pocket full of advice, and a dog who seems to think you're the most interesting thing since sliced bread, which, incidentally, won't be invented for another few thousand years. But that's the charm of Greek myths. They remind us that even the most epic journeys are made up of small, everyday moments. And sometimes the best adventures begin with a single misplaced step. You and your new canine companion, whom you've decided to call Sandal, a name that pays homage to the ancient Greek tradition of leaving a single sandal at the river's edge as an offering, amble away from the village. The reasons for this name are both obvious and slightly passive-aggressive, but it serves as a reminder of the journey you're on. You follow a dusty path that winds through olive groves and sun-baked fields. Sandal trots beside you, occasionally darting off to sniff at a suspicious bush or bark at a particularly menacing butterfly. His presence brings a comforting warmth, making you feel a little lighter, even if that friend is mainly motivated by the hope of dropped snacks. The road is quiet, save for the distant bleating of sheep and the soft crunch of gravel beneath your feet. The landscape is a patchwork of greens and golds, dotted with wildflowers and the occasional, inexplicably dramatic boulder. You pass a farmer tending to his vines, his back bent and his hat pulled low against the sun. He glances up as you approach, his eyes lingering on your single sandal and your four-legged shadow. "Lost something?" he asks, in the tone of someone who's seen it all. Heroes, monsters, and more than a few missing shoes. His wisdom, though delivered with a hint of amusement, enlightens you. You nod and he chuckles. "You're not the first. The river's got a taste for sandals, hats, and the occasional lunch. My advice? Don't argue with water. It always wins." He offers you a bunch of grapes, their skins warm from the sun. You accept, popping one into your mouth and savoring the burst of sweetness. Sandal looks up expectantly, and you share a grape with him, earning a wag of approval. Here's your central historical fact. Ancient Greek farmers were experts in viticulture, and grapes were a staple of both diet and economy. Wine was consumed daily, often diluted with water, and was considered a gift from Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. Some villages even held annual festivals in his honor, complete with singing, dancing, and the occasional regrettable poetry contest. Historians still debate whether these festivals were more about religious devotion or just a socially acceptable excuse to drink before noon. This cultural insight adds depth to your journey, enriching your understanding of the Greek way of life. You thank the farmer and continue, the taste of grapes lingering on your tongue. The path narrows as it enters a small grove, the trees arching overhead to form a leafy tunnel. The air is cooler here, filled with the scent of earth and growing things. Sunlight filters through the branches, painting dappled patterns on the ground. Sandal bounds ahead, chasing a squirrel with the enthusiasm of someone who's never actually caught a squirrel and has no idea what he'd do if he did. You pause to rest on a fallen log, stretching your sore foot and massaging the arch of your foot. The ground is littered with acorns and the occasional mysterious feather. You wonder if the local nymphs are watching, amused by your predicament. In Greek myth, nymphs were known for their playful, sometimes mischievous nature. They could bless travelers with good fortune or, if they were feeling cheeky, hide your belongings just out of reach. You offer a silent greeting to the trees, just in case. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some regions of Greece, travelers would tie small offerings, ribbons, bits of cloth, or even locks of hair to the branches of sacred trees, hoping to earn the favor of the resident nymphs. It was a way of saying, "Please don't trip me, hide my sandals, or turn me into a shrub." Scholars still debate whether these offerings were compelling, but the trees certainly looked festive. As you sit, you notice a small, weathered sign nailed to a tree. The letters are faded, but you can make out the words, "Beware the river's mood. Cross at your own risk." You snort softly. If only you'd seen that sign earlier, your left foot might still be enjoying the comfort of its sandal. Sandal the dog, sensing your amusement, flops down beside you and rolls onto his back, demanding a belly rub. You oblige because even heroes need a break. After a while, you rise and continue, the path leading you back toward the river. The water glimmers in the afternoon sun, its surface smooth and deceptively calm. You approach the bank cautiously, half expecting the river to reach out and snatch your remaining sandal just for fun. Instead, it burbles innocently, as if butter wouldn't melt in its mouth. You kneel at the edge, cupping your hands to drink, and the water is cold and sweet, with a hint of mischief. You recall the advice from the village women. Make peace with the river, ask politely, and perhaps leave a small offering behind. You search your pockets and come up with a grape stem, a smooth pebble, and a single, slightly squashed figure. You arrange them on a flat stone at the water's edge, feeling a bit ridiculous but also oddly hopeful. "For Potamus," you murmur, "and for the safe return of my sandal, or at least a little mercy for my foot." Sandal sits beside you, watching the ritual with the solemnity of a priest at a temple. The river gurgles, a sound that could be laughter or just the usual business of being a river. You wait, half expecting a miracle, but nothing happens. No sandal floats to the surface. No divine hand reaches down from the clouds. Just the steady, soothing flow of water and the gentle rustle of leaves. You sigh, standing up and brushing off your hands. The river may need more time. Or, as the farmer said, water always wins. Either way, you feel a little lighter, as if the act of asking has shifted something inside you. You set off once more, sandal trotting at your side, the road stretching ahead like a promise. This sense of hope and personal growth inspires you to continue your journey, enabling you to reflect on the lessons you have learned. It's a journey of hope and personal development, encouraging you to face the challenges ahead with a renewed spirit. And as you walk, you can't help but think, maybe the real quest isn't about finding your sandal at all. Perhaps it's about learning to walk a little softer, to laugh at your missteps, and to trust that, eventually, the river will return what it's taken, or at least teach you how to dance barefoot. The afternoon sun drifts lazily across the sky, casting long shadows that stretch like sleepy cats across the path. You and Sandal wander onward, the world around you humming with the gentle, drowsy energy of a Greek siesta. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey brays with the conviction of someone who believes he's the main character. You can't help but smile. After all, in a land of heroes and gods, sometimes it's the donkeys who steal the show. It's these whimsical moments that make the journey so entertaining. The road leads you through a patch of wild fennel, the tall stalks swaying in the breeze. The scent is sharp and sweet, and you remember that fennel was once considered a symbol of victory in ancient Greece. Victors in athletic games would be crowned with fennel stalks, which, you have to admit, is a lot less itchy than a laurel wreath. You pluck a sprig and tuck it behind your ear, feeling at least 3% more heroic. Sandal, not to be outdone, finds a stick and parades it proudly, as if he's just discovered the lost staff of Hermes. Here's your central historical fact. The ancient Greeks believed that certain plants held magical properties. Fennel, for example, was more than just a plant. It was a symbol of fertility and abundance. It was associated with Prometheus, the titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. According to legend, he carried the stolen flame inside a hollow fennel stalk. This unique association with such a pivotal figure in Greek mythology adds a layer of intrigue to the humble fennel. Historians still debate whether this was a clever bit of symbolism or just an early example of creative fire safety. You pass a small shrine at the crossroads, its stones worn smooth by centuries of hopeful hands. Someone has left a handful of olives and a tiny clay figurine of a turtle, an offering to Hermes, the god of travelers and, conveniently, lost things. You pause, considering whether to leave your tribute. After a moment's thought, you place your fennel sprig beside the turtle, silently asking Hermes to keep an eye out for your missing sandal. Sandal the dog, meanwhile, sniffs the shrine and sneezes, which you take as a sign of approval. The path forks and you choose the left, mostly because your left foot is still feeling a little neglected. The road narrows, winding through a grove of pines. The air is thick with the scent of resin and the soft, persistent buzz of bees. You spot a beehive hanging from a low branch, its surface alive with activity. In ancient Greece, honey was revered as the food of the gods, and beekeepers were highly esteemed. You wonder if the bees ever lose anything, perhaps a particularly prized flower or a favorite patch of sunlight. Here's your obscure cultural fact. The Greeks believed that bees were not just insects, but messengers between the mortal world and the divine. Some even thought that the souls of the dead could return as bees, buzzing quietly through the fields and orchards. In certain villages, it was customary to whisper news and secrets to the bees, just in case they felt like passing it along to the gods. This belief in the bees' divine connection adds a fascinating layer to the ancient Greek culture, sparking intrigue and wonder. Scholars still debate whether this was a genuine belief or merely a clever way to justify communicating with insects. You and Sandal continue, the path sloping gently downward toward the river. The water glimmers through the trees, its surface dappled with sunlight. You pause at the edge, watching as a pair of ducks paddle by, quacking softly to each other. You wonder what they're discussing, perhaps the latest gossip from the upstream reeds or the mysterious case of the missing sandal. You wave just in case they're in the mood to help. You find a flat stone and sit, dangling your feet in the cool water. Sandal lies beside you, his head resting on his paws, eyes half closed in the afternoon heat. The river is calm, its voice a gentle murmur. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of water and wind lull you into a state of near sleep. For a moment, you forget about your quest, your missing sandal, and the long road ahead. All that matters is the here and now. The sun on your face, the dog at your side, and the river's endless song. You're jolted from your reverie by a sudden splash. You open your eyes to see Sandal standing in the shallows, tail wagging furiously. He's found something, a stick, perhaps, or an exciting rock. You wade in to investigate, the water cool against your skin. Sandal noses at a clump of reeds, and you spot a flash of leather. Could it be? You reach down, heart pounding, and pull out a very soggy, very unheroic sandal. Not yours, unfortunately. This one is far too small, decorated with faded red paint and a tiny bell. You laugh, the sound echoing across the water. "Nice try, Sandal," you say, ruffling his ears, "but I think this one belongs to a much smaller hero." You leave the tiny sandal on a rock, just in case its owner comes looking. The river is enjoying the spectacle. You can almost hear it whisper, "Keep looking." You sit back on the bank, feeling a mix of disappointment and amusement. The quest continues, but you're not alone, and that makes all the difference. You glance at Sandal, who is now busy chasing his tail, and you realize that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. This philosophical reflection on the significance of the journey in the ancient Greek context can inspire a sense of reflection in the audience. Or, as the ancient Greeks might have put it, it's not about the sandal, it's about the friends you make along the way. It's these moments of reflection that make the journey so meaningful. You stand, brushing the sand from your feet, and set off once more. The road ahead is long, the river is still a little smug, and your left foot is still bare. But you're a hero, and heroes never give up, especially when there's a good story to tell at the end of the day. The sun begins its slow descent, casting a serene palette of apricot and lavender across the sky, as if the gods themselves are painting a masterpiece. You, the brave hero of our tale, and I stroll along the riverbank, the air growing cooler and the shadows stretching longer. The world seems to have hushed. Even the cicadas have taken a respite, allowing you to bask in tranquility. You walk in a peaceful silence. The only sounds the gentle squelch of your bare foot and the occasional jingle of Sandals' new stick, adorned with a bit of river weed. He's embracing the hero's journey in his way. You come upon a small, rickety bridge, its planks creaking under the weight of your expectations. The bridge has seen better days and possibly a few worse ones. You pause, considering your options. Cross the bridge and risk a dramatic collapse, or wade through the river and risk another Sandal-related incident, like the time Sandal got his paw stuck in a clamshell. You glance at Sandal, who gives you a look that says, "You're the hero." You decide. It's a lot of pressure for someone with only one shoe. You opt for the bridge, stepping gingerly onto the first plank. It groans in protest but holds. You make your way across, each step a minor act of faith. Halfway over, you spot a small plaque nailed to the railing. The inscription reads, "Dedicated to the memory of Eubelos, who tried to cross with a donkey and learned the hard way." You can't help but chuckle. You're not the only one with questionable luck and a flair for dramatic crossings. Here's your central historical fact. In ancient Greece, bridges were often the sites of local legends and superstitions. Some believed that trolls or spirits lived beneath them, demanding small offerings from travelers. Coins, bits of bread, or even a whispered promise were left behind to ensure safe passage. Historians still debate whether these stories were intended to explain the occasional collapse of a bridge or to keep children from playing too close to the water. You reach the other side, triumphant and only slightly more anxious about the structural integrity of ancient Greek engineering. Sandal trots across after you, pausing to sniff the plaque and give it a respectful wag. You both take a moment to appreciate the view. The river winding through the valley, the hills bathed in golden light, and the distant outline of a temple perched atop a rocky outcrop. It's the kind of scene that makes you want to recite poetry, or at least hum a few bars of something vaguely heroic. You follow the path toward the temple, the air growing still and reverent. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims, each one hoping for a blessing, a miracle, or maybe just a little less drama in their daily lives. The temple itself is small but elegant, its columns wrapped in ivy and its steps flanked by statues of nymphs and satyrs. You climb the steps, feeling the weight of history settle around your shoulders like a well-worn cloak. You are not just a traveler. You are a part of a rich cultural tapestry that stretches back through the ages, a connection that enriches your journey. Inside, the air is cool and fragrant with the scent of incense. A priestess stands near the altar, her robes shimmering in the fading light. She greets you with a nod, her eyes lingering on your single sandal. "Seeking something lost?" she asks, her voice gentle and knowing. You nod, explaining your predicament in the most dignified way possible, which is to say, you try not to sound like someone who's been outwitted by a river. She smiles, as if she's heard this story 100 times before. The river takes what it wants, but it also gives. Sometimes what you find is not what you expect. She gestures to a small basket filled with lost items. A child's toy, a silver brooch, and a very familiar-looking hat. Pilgrims leave offerings, and sometimes the river returns them. Sometimes it offers something new. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some Greek temples, it was customary to leave votive offerings, small tokens that represented hopes, prayers, or expressions of thanks. These could be anything from miniature sandals, yes, really, to carved animals or even tiny clay feet. The more creative the offering, the more likely it was believed that the gods would take notice. Scholars still debate whether the gods had a particular fondness for tiny shoes or if the priests just had a good sense of humor. You kneel at the altar, placing your offering, a smooth pebble from the riverbank, polished by your thumb and a little bit of wishful thinking. You close your eyes, whispering a quiet request for guidance, patience, and, if it's not too much trouble, a matching pair of sandals. The temple is silent, save for the soft rustle of ivy and the distant call of an owl. You feel a sense of calm settle over you, as if the gods are listening, or at least pretending to. The priestess offers you a cup of honeyed wine, the taste sweet and warming. You sip slowly, savoring the moment. Sandal sits at your feet, his head resting on your knee, content to be part of the ritual. You thank the priestess and step back into the evening air, feeling lighter, as if you've left some of your worries behind with your offering. The sky is deepening to indigo, the first stars pricking through the dusk. You and Sandal make your way down the temple steps, the world hushed and expectant. The river glimmers in the moonlight, its surface smooth and mysterious. You pause, taking it all in, the scent of incense, the taste of honey, the promise of another day. As you continue your journey, you come to realize that sometimes the things we lose are just waiting to be found in unexpected places. Or, at the very least, they make for a good story to tell the next time you find yourself at a crossroads, wondering which path to take. The world is full of surprises, and it's in these unexpected discoveries that we truly find ourselves. The night has draped the landscape in a velvet cloak, a sight that fills you with wonder and a sense of enchantment. The moon, a silver coin tossed carelessly across the sky, and the stars, ancient gods with a sleepy indifference, create a scene that blurs the boundaries between myth and reality. As you and Sandal pad along the riverbank, the world feels smaller, and the possibility of anything, lost sandals talking rivers, heroic dogs, seems within reach. Beneath the sprawling plane tree, a gentle giant with its branches arching overhead, you find a spot of tranquility. The river glides by, its surface reflecting the moonlight in ripples and shivers. You sit, stretching your tired legs, and Sandal curls up beside you, his nose tucked under his tail. The night air is cool and still, filled with the soft chorus of crickets and the occasional splash of a fish leaping for a midnight snack. You lean back against the tree, feeling the rough bark press into your shoulders, and let the peace of the night wash over you, calming your mind and soothing your spirit. Here's your central historical fact. The ancient Greeks believed that certain trees, especially plane trees, were sacred to the gods. They were often planted near temples and springs, and it was said that nymphs made their homes in their branches. Some travelers would tie ribbons or garlands to the trees as offerings, hoping to earn the favor of the resident spirits. Historians still debate whether these rituals were acts of genuine devotion or just a convenient excuse to decorate the local flora. You reach into your pouch and pull out a piece of bread, breaking it in half and sharing it with Sandal. He munches contentedly, his tail thumping against the grass. You take a bite, savoring the simple comfort of food and the warmth of companionship. The night is quiet, but not lonely. You feel the presence of all those who have walked this path before you. Heroes, wanderers, dreamers, each one leaving behind a story, a footprint, or, in your case, a sandal. And with Sandal by your side, you feel a little less alone in this vast, myth-filled night. As you eat, you notice a faint glow on the far side of the river. At first, you think it's a trick of the moonlight, but then you see movement. A small group of people, their torches flickering like fireflies. They're singing, their voices rising and falling in a language you almost recognize. You watch, entranced, as they dance in a slow circle, their shadows weaving patterns on the grass. It's a festival, you realize, a celebration of the river and the spirits who dwell within it. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some parts of ancient Greece, rivers were honored with nighttime festivals called patamoi. These festivals were not just about singing, dancing, and floating tiny boats downstream. They were a way for villagers to show their respect and gratitude to the river gods, hoping for a bountiful year. Scholars still debate whether these festivals were primarily about religious devotion or merely a convenient excuse to stay up past bedtime. The rituals and festivals were deeply ingrained in the cultural and spiritual practices of the ancient Greeks, reflecting their reverence for nature and their belief in the power of the gods. You watch as the dancers release their boats into the water, the little flames bobbing and drifting with the current. The river glows with 100 tiny lights, each one carrying a wish, a prayer, or a hope for better luck with footwear. You feel a pang of longing. Maybe your sandal is out there, floating along with the rest, carried by the river to some distant shore. Sandal lifts his head, ears pricked, as if he senses your thoughts. He nudges your hand with his nose, a gentle reminder that you're not alone. You scratch behind his ears, grateful for his steady presence. The two of you sit in silence, watching the boats drift away, their lights growing fainter with each passing moment. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of the festival wash over you. The music, the laughter, the soft rush of water. You imagine yourself joining the dancers, your bare foot tapping out a rhythm on the grass, your single sandal keeping time. You picture the river carrying your worries downstream, leaving you lighter, freer, and just a little bit more hopeful. You open your eyes to find the festival winding down, the dancers dispersing into the night. The river is quiet once more, its surface dotted with the last few flickering lights. You feel a sense of peace settle over you, as if the river has accepted your offering and granted you a small measure of grace. You lie back on the grass, staring up at the stars, and let yourself drift. Here's a joke for the night. Why did the Greek hero refuse to cross the river at night? Because he didn't want to lose his sole purpose. You chuckle softly, the sound blending with the night. Sandal sighs, content, and you feel sleep tugging at your eyelids. The world is gentle, the river forgiving, and your quest, finding the lost sandal and completing your journey, though still unfinished, feels a little less urgent. After all, there's always tomorrow, and perhaps, with a bit of luck, a matching pair of sandals is waiting just around the bend. This hope for the future, this belief in the possibility of a better day, fills you with a quiet optimism. As you close your eyes, you whisper a quiet thank you to the river, the tree, and the stars. You promise to keep searching, to keep walking, and to keep laughing at the absurdity of it all. The hero's journey, a concept deeply rooted in Greek mythology, is about the adventures and challenges a hero faces on their quest. It's a narrative structure that often involves a call to adventure, trials and tribulations, and a return with newfound wisdom. The twists and turns, the lost sandals. It's all so absurd, and yet, it's what makes life interesting. Because in the end, that's what heroes do. They keep going one step at a time, even if they have to do it barefoot. Dawn arrives with a gentle nudge, the sky blushing pink as if embarrassed to be caught waking up. You stir beneath the plane tree, dew clinging to your tunic and the faint memory of dreams still tangled in your hair. Sandal is already awake, sniffing industriously at a patch of grass, as if he's discovered the lost city of Atlantis beneath a dandelion. You stretch, feeling the pleasant ache of a night spent outdoors, and take a moment to appreciate the awe-inspiring beauty. The river, too, is in no hurry, its surface smooth and glassy, reflecting the first rays of sunlight like a well-polished shield. You rise, brushing the grass from your clothes, and take stock of your situation. One sandal, one dog, and a growing sense that your quest has become less about footwear and more about finding your place in a world that's both ancient and oddly familiar. You wonder if all heroes wake up with grass in their hair and a dog drooling on their feet. If so, you're in excellent company. The grass clinging to you is like the lost city of Atlantis, a reminder of the dreams and mysteries that still elude you. You follow the riverbank, the morning air cool and sweet. Birds flit from branch to branch, their songs weaving a tapestry of sound that makes you feel, for a moment, like you're walking through a living poem. Sandal trots ahead, tail high, occasionally glancing back to make sure you're keeping up. You pass a fisherman casting his net. His movements are slow and practiced. He nods in greeting, his eyes crinkling with amusement at your single sandal. "Lost something?" he asks, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. You nod and he shrugs. The river takes what it wants. Sometimes it gives back. Sometimes it just keeps you guessing. He pulls in his net, revealing a catch of silver fish and, to your surprise, a small wooden comb. He holds it up, examining it with a critical eye. Not what I was hoping for, but you never know when you'll need to look your best. He tosses it onto the pile, and you can't help but laugh. In a world of gods and monsters, it's the little things that keep you grounded. Here's your central historical fact. In ancient Greece, rivers were not just sources of water. They were lifelines, providing food, transportation, and a sense of connection to the land. Many towns and cities were built along rivers, and their names often reflected the local waterways. The Greeks believed that each river had its distinct personality, moods, and whims. Some were gentle and nurturing, others wild and unpredictable. Historians still debate whether these beliefs were rooted in observation or simply a way to explain why your sandals kept disappearing. You continue along the path, the sun climbing higher, the world waking up around you. You pass a cluster of wild herbs, sage, rosemary, and a stubborn patch of mint that refuses to be tamed. You pluck a sprig and rub it between your fingers, the scent sharp and invigorating. In ancient times, herbs were prized not only for their flavor, but also for their purported magical properties. A sprig of mint tucked into your sandal was said to ward off blisters and bad luck. You consider tucking it into your remaining sandal, but decide it's probably too late for that particular charm. Here's your obscure cultural fact. The Greeks believed that certain herbs could influence dreams. Placing a sprig of rosemary under your pillow was thought to bring restful sleep and pleasant visions, while sage was said to ward off nightmares. Some even claimed that mint could inspire prophetic dreams, although most people used it to freshen their breath. Scholars still debate whether these practices had any real effect or if they were simply an early form of aromatherapy. You and Sandal reach a bend in the river where the water slows, forming a vast, shallow pool. The surface is dotted with lily pads, their white flowers opening to greet the sun. You sit on a flat rock, dipping your sore foot into the cool water. Sandal splashes in beside you, chasing after a dragonfly with the single-minded determination of someone who has never actually caught a dragonfly and doesn't intend to start now. You close your eyes, letting the warmth of the sun and the gentle lap of the water lull you into a state of near meditation. You think about all the things you've lost and found along the way. Not just sandals, but moments of peace, unexpected friendships, and a growing appreciation for the absurdity of life. You realize, in some profound way, that the river has become a vital companion, its moods and mysteries mirroring your journey and keeping you engaged. A sudden splash jolts you from your reverie. You open your eyes to see Sandal standing triumphantly in the shallows, something clamped in his jaws. He trots over, tail wagging, and drops his prize at your feet. It's not your sandal, but a rather impressive stick, worn smooth by the water and shaped, if you squint, a little like a lightning bolt. You laugh, ruffling his ears. Nice try, Sandal. Maybe next time you'll find the real thing. You stand, feeling refreshed, and continue on your way. The day stretches ahead, full of promise and possibility. The river glimmers in the sunlight, its surface alive with the reflections of clouds and the occasional, mysterious ripple. You walk with a lighter step. Your bare foot is no longer a symbol of loss, but a reminder that sometimes the best adventures begin with a single, misplaced step. And as you walk, you can't help but think, maybe the river isn't just a thief. Perhaps it's a teacher, showing you how to let go, how to laugh at yourself, and how to find joy in the journey, even if you have to do it with only one sandal. The river, with its ever-changing currents and unpredictable nature, serves as a metaphor for life's journey, teaching us to adapt and find beauty in the unexpected. The sun climbs higher, and the world grows busier. You and Sandal follow the river as it winds past fields of barley and wheat, the stalks swaying in the breeze like a crowd of sleepy spectators. Farmers wave as you pass, their hands stained with earth and their faces creased with smiles. You wave back, feeling oddly famous for someone whose most significant achievement so far is not tripping over his own feet. Sandal, meanwhile, has become a minor celebrity in his own right, collecting pats and scraps from anyone with a soft spot for scruffy heroes. You come upon a bustling market, the air thick with the scent of fresh bread, ripe figs, and the unmistakable tang of goat cheese. The sound of merchants calling out their wares fills the air, blending with the chatter of the crowd and the occasional bleat of a goat. Stalls line the square, their awnings striped in faded colors, and merchants call out their wares with the enthusiasm of people who know that a good story can sell anything. You wander through the crowd, your single sandal drawing curious glances and the occasional sympathetic nod. One merchant, a woman with a crown of laurel leaves and a laugh like rolling thunder, beckons you over. "Looking for a new pair?" she asks, gesturing to a display of sandals in every shape and size. You explain your predicament, and she clucks her tongue in mock disapproval. "Rivers, always taking what doesn't belong to them. I once lost a whole basket of apples to the stream behind my house. Never saw them again, though I did find a very well-fed fish a week later." She winks, offering you a seat and a cool glass of water. Here's your central historical fact. Markets were the heart of ancient Greek cities, not just for commerce, but for conversation, gossip, and the exchange of ideas. The agora, as it was called, was a place where everyone, from the wealthiest merchant to the humblest farmer, could find a voice. Philosophers would debate, poets would recite, and politicians would make promises they had no intention of keeping. The actual currency of the market was drachmas, the standard currency of ancient Greece. You browse the sandals, admiring the craftsmanship. Some are simple, made for walking long distances. Others are decorated with beads, shells, or tiny bronze charms. You spot a pair with wings stitched onto the sides, inspired by Hermes, the messenger god. You try one on, but it feels wrong, as if your foot knows it's not the real thing. You thank the merchant and move on, deciding that your quest isn't about replacing what you've lost, but about finding what you're meant to have. Sandal, meanwhile, has discovered a stall selling roasted meats and is doing his best impression of a starving philosopher. The vendor, a burly man with a beard that could house a family of sparrows, laughs and tosses him a bone. "For the hero's companion," he says, bowing with exaggerated formality. Sandal accepts the gift with the dignity of a king, gnawing contentedly at your feet. You wander through the market, sampling olives, figs, and a mysterious pastry that tastes like honey and sunshine. You listen to a storyteller recount the tale of a fisherman who caught a golden fish that granted wishes, though, according to the storyteller, the only wish it ever granted was for more fish. The crowd laughs, and you join in, feeling the warmth of shared stories and simple pleasures. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some Greek markets, it was customary for vendors to offer a taste of their goods to passersby, not just as a sales tactic, but as a gesture of hospitality. Refusing a taste was considered rude, unless you were a philosopher, in which case you were probably too busy debating the nature of olives to eat one. Scholars still debate whether this tradition was the origin of the modern free sample, or just an excuse to eat lunch while working. As the day wears on, you find a shady spot beneath a fig tree and sit, watching the ebb and flow of the market. Sandal lies beside you, his belly full and his eyes half closed. You feel a sense of contentment, as if you've found a small oasis amid your journey. The market is alive with color and sound, a living tapestry of voices, laughter, and the occasional argument over the price of onions. You close your eyes, letting the sounds wash over you. You think about all the people you've met, the farmer, the priestess, the sandal merchant, and realize that each one has left a mark on your journey. You may have started out looking for a lost sandal, but somewhere along the way, you found something far more valuable. A sense of belonging, a place in the story, and a dog who thinks you're the greatest hero in the world. You feel a surge of gratitude and warmth, a deep sense of connection to the world around you. You open your eyes to find Sandal watching you, his tail thumping softly against the ground. You scratch his head, grateful for his unwavering loyalty. The two of you sit in companionable silence, the market bustling around you, the river glimmering in the distance. You realize that, for the first time in a long while, you're not in a hurry. The journey is enough, and as the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, you stand, ready to continue your quest. The market fades behind you, the road stretches ahead, and the river, always just out of reach, beckons you onward. You walk with a lighter step, your bare foot no longer a source of embarrassment but a badge of honor. After all, not every hero needs two sandals. Sometimes, all you need is a good story, a loyal friend, and the courage to keep walking. The road out of the market is lined with poplar trees, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. You and Sandal stroll along, the last rays of sunlight dappling the path in gold. The air is thick with the scent of ripening fruit and the distant promise of rain. A promise the sky seems in no hurry to keep. You feel the gentle ache of a day well spent, your stomach pleasantly full, and your heart lighter than it's been in ages. Sandal trots beside you, his tail wagging in time with your steps, as if he's composing a song only the two of you can hear. You pass a group of children playing a game with stones and sticks, their laughter ringing out like bells, filling the air with joy. One of them, a girl with wild curls and a gap-toothed grin, calls out, "Hey, hero, where's your other sandal?" The others giggle and you bow with exaggerated dignity. Lost to the river, noble friends, beware of its appetite for footwear. The children shriek with delight, and one boy offers you a pebble for luck. You accept it solemnly, tucking it into your pouch alongside the other treasures you've collected. Tokens of kindness, reminders that even the smallest gestures can carry significant meaning. Here's your central historical fact. In ancient Greece, children's games were often inspired by the myths and legends of their culture. Games like knucklebones, an early form of jacks, and ephedrismus, a kind of piggyback tag, were played in city squares and village streets. Some games even had ritual significance, believed to bring good fortune or ward off bad luck. Historians still debate whether these games were intended to teach children about the world or to keep them occupied while adults engaged in philosophical discussions. Another interesting fact is that the Greeks believed in the power of the elements, attributing the scent of ripening fruit and the distant promise of rain to the influence of the gods. You and Sandal continue along the river, the sky deepening to a dusky blue. The first stars appear, shy and tentative, as if checking to see if it's safe to come out. You find yourself humming a tune you heard in the market, the melody weaving through your thoughts like a gentle breeze. Sandal listens, ears perked, and you imagine he's composing his lyrics. Something about sticks, snacks, and the eternal mystery of missing sandals. You come upon a small, weathered signpost at a fork in the road. One arrow points toward the mountains, the other toward the sea. You pause, considering your options. The mountains promise adventure, and the sea whispers of distant lands and new beginnings. You glance at Sandal, who sniffs both paths and sits down, clearly leaving the decision to you. It's a classic hero's dilemma, reminiscent of the choices faced by heroes in Greek myths. Climb to new heights like Icarus, or follow the current to unknown shores like Odysseus. Here's your obscure cultural fact. The Greeks believed that crossroads were places of magic and possibility, watched over by Hermes, the god of travelers and tricksters. Hermes, known for his winged sandals and cap, was a messenger of the gods and a guide to the souls of the dead. Offerings were often left at these junctions, small piles of stones called herms, to ensure safe passage and good luck. Some travelers would even whisper their wishes to the wind, hoping Hermes would carry them to the right ears. Scholars still debate whether these rituals were acts of faith or just a way to hedge one's bets when faced with difficult choices. You decide to follow the river toward the sea, drawn by the promise of new horizons. The path narrows, winding through a grove of cypress trees. The air is cooler here, tinged with the scent of salt and the distant cry of gulls. You feel a sense of anticipation, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. Sandal trots ahead, his nose to the ground, leading the way with the confidence of someone who's never doubted his instincts. As you walk, you spot a small shrine nestled among the roots of an ancient tree. The shrine is simple, a flat stone, a few wilted flowers, and a tiny clay figurine of a fish. You pause, adding your lucky pebble to the collection. For safe travels, you whisper, and for the return of lost things. The tree rustles in response, and you like to think it's a sign of approval. You reach a bend in the river where the water widens, the current slowing to a lazy drift. The moon rises, casting a silver path across the surface. You sit on the bank, Sandal curling up beside you, and watch as the water carries leaves and twigs downstream. You wonder where your Sandal is now, perhaps caught in a tangle of reeds or drifting toward the sea, or maybe, just maybe, waiting for you at the end of your journey. Here's a joke for the road. Why did the hero bring a map to the river? Because he didn't want to get lost in thought. You laugh, the sound mingling with the night air. Sandal thumps his tail, as if he's heard better but appreciates the effort. The two of you sit in companionable silence, the river murmuring its secrets, the stars winking overhead. You feel a sense of peace, a quiet certainty that, whatever happens next, you're exactly where you're meant to be, enveloping you in a calm serenity. As you drift toward sleep, you think about all the crossroads you've faced, literal and metaphorical, and realize that every choice, every step, has brought you closer to yourself. The journey isn't about finding what you've lost, but about discovering what you never knew you needed. And sometimes the best adventures begin with a single missing sandal. The night air, cool and briny, wraps you and your faithful companion, Sandal, in a soothing embrace as you follow the river's gentle curve toward the sea. The path is softer here, the ground yielding beneath your feet with each step, as if the earth itself is sighing in its sleep. The moon, high in the sky, casts the world in a serene silver and shadow, and the only sounds are the distant call of an owl and the soft, rhythmic lap of water against the shore. You walk in a tranquil silence, your thoughts drifting as lazily as the river itself. You come upon a small fishing village, its houses clustered together like a flock of sleepy birds. Lanterns glow in a handful of windows, and the scent of salt and roasting fish hangs in the air. You and Sandal wander through the quiet streets, your single sandal slapping softly against the cobblestones. A cat watches you from a windowsill, its eyes gleaming with the kind of wisdom only cats and very old philosophers possess. You nod in greeting, and the cat blinks, as if to say, "You're not the first hero to pass through here with only one shoe." You find a bench near the harbor and sit, watching the boats bob gently in the moonlight. Fishermen creep along the docks, tending to their nets and sharing stories in low voices. One of them, a wiry man with a beard that could double as a fishing net, approaches and offers you a piece of grilled octopus. "For the traveler," he says, his voice rough but kind. You accept, savoring the smoky flavor and the warmth of his simple, yet heartfelt, hospitality. Sandal gets a scrap as well and devours it with the enthusiasm of someone who's just discovered seafood. Here's your central historical fact. Fishing was a vital part of life in ancient Greece, especially in coastal villages. The sea provided not just food, but a sense of connection to the broader world. Fishermen were respected for their skill and bravery, venturing out in small boats to face the unpredictable moods of Poseidon. Some villages even held annual festivals in honor of the sea gods, offering the first catch of the season as a sign of gratitude. Historians still debate whether these rituals were acts of faith or just a clever way to ensure a good dinner. You've been on a quest, a journey of self-discovery and reflection. The missing sandal, a symbol of the unexpected twists and turns life can take, has been a constant reminder of life's unpredictability. You thank the fisherman and wander down to the water's edge. The sand is cool beneath your feet, and the waves whisper secrets as they break on the shore. You spot a group of children building a fortress out of driftwood and shells, their laughter carried on the breeze. One of them waves you over, proudly showing off a treasure they've found, a battered, waterlogged sandal. Your heart skips a beat, but as you examine it, you realize it's not yours. Still, you can't help but smile at the coincidence. The sea, it seems, has a sense of humor. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some Greek fishing villages, it was customary to toss old shoes into the sea as an offering to the gods, a way of asking for safe passage and good fortune. The shoes were believed to carry away bad luck, leaving the wearer free to start anew. Scholars still debate whether this tradition was rooted in superstition or simply a practical means of disposing of worn-out footwear. You sit with the children for a while, their lively curiosity sparking a vibrant conversation about your journey and your missing sandal. They are full of questions, hanging on your every word. You tell them the story, how the river took it, how you've searched high and low, and how you found more than you ever expected along the way. They listen with wide eyes, and when you finish, one of them solemnly presents you with a shell for luck. You accept it, tucking it into your pouch alongside the pebble from the market and the sprig of mint from the riverbank. The village grows quiet as the night deepens. You and Sandal find a spot on the sand, curling up beneath a sky thick with stars. The sea sings a lullaby, and you feel yourself drifting, the line between waking and dreaming blurring with each passing wave. You think about all the places you've been and all the people you've met and realize that your journey has become a tapestry of moments, each one woven with laughter, kindness, and the occasional lost shoe. Here's a joke for the night. Why did the fisherman refuse to wear sandals? Because he didn't want to get caught up in soul-searching. You chuckle, the sound mingling with the hush of the waves. Sandal sighs, content, and you feel a deep sense of peace. The world is vast and mysterious, but for now, you are precisely where you need to be, on the edge of the sea, with a loyal friend and a pocketful of stories. These stories, each a unique thread in the tapestry of your journey, are a testament to the richness of life and the value of experiences. As you close your eyes, you whisper a quiet thank you to the river, the sea, and the stars. You promise to keep searching, to keep walking, and to keep finding joy in the journey, even if you have to do it with only one sandal. Your heart is filled with gratitude for the experiences and the people you've encountered along the way. The morning unfolds with a serene tranquility, a gentle breeze carrying the soft, persistent cry of gulls. You awaken to the soothing sound of waves caressing the shore, the cool sand beneath your cheek, and a faint taste of salt on your lips. Sandal is already up, his nose buried in a pile of seaweed, his tail wagging as if he's unearthed the secret to pure joy in a particularly pungent clump. You sit up, brushing sand from your hair, and take a moment to witness the sun rise over the water, casting the sky in streaks of gold and rose. The world feels fresh, as if the sea has rinsed away yesterday's concerns, leaving you with nothing but boundless potential. You meander through the awakening village, feeling a sense of belonging. Fishermen haul in their nets, their weathered faces and nimble hands a familiar sight. Women sweep the stoops of whitewashed houses, pausing to greet you with a nod or a smile. Children playfully chase each other through the narrow streets, their laughter reverberating off the stone walls. You feel like an integral part of the morning, intricately woven into the fabric of village life, even if you are still a little lopsided in your single sandal. You stumble upon a quaint bakery nestled between two houses, the air thick with the inviting aroma of fresh bread and honey. The baker, a jovial man with flour dusting his hair and a grin as wide as the sea, beckons you in. Come, traveler. You look like you could use a hearty breakfast, and perhaps a new pair of shoes. You chuckle, accepting a warm roll and a cup of sweet, spiced milk. Sandal is not forgotten, and he savors his treat with the enthusiasm of someone who's never heard of moderation. Here's your central historical fact. Ancient Greek bakeries were more than just places to buy bread. They were social hubs, where news was exchanged, deals were struck, and the occasional bit of matchmaking was attempted over a loaf of barley bread. Bread itself was a staple of the Greek diet, with dozens of varieties made from wheat, barley, and even chickpeas. Some loaves were shaped like animals or gods, offered at festivals or as tokens of good luck. Historians still debate whether the best bread originated from Athens, Corinth, or some other village with the most persuasive baker. You thank the baker and step outside, savoring the warmth of the bread and the sweetness of the morning. Sandal trots beside you, licking crumbs from his whiskers. You wander down to the harbor, where the fishermen are preparing their boats for the day's catch. One of them, a woman with sun-bleached hair and arms strong from years of rowing, calls you over. "You're the one looking for a lost sandal, aren't you?" she asks, her eyes twinkling. You nod and she laughs. The sea gives and the sea takes. Maybe it's waiting for you to offer something in return. She hands you a small, woven basket filled with shells and bits of colored glass. Take this to the old shrine on the headland. Leave an offering and who knows, maybe the gods will return what you've lost, or at least give you a good story to tell. You thank her, tucking the basket under your arm, and set off along the path that winds up the rocky bluff. Here's your obscure cultural fact. Coastal shrines were common in ancient Greece, dedicated to gods and spirits of the sea. Sailors and fishermen would leave offerings, coins, shells, even small wooden boats, in hopes of safe passage and bountiful catches. Some shrines were said to grant wishes, especially to those who approached with humility and a sense of humor. Scholars still debate whether these shrines were truly magical or simply a way for people to feel a little less alone in the vastness of the world. The climb is steep, the path lined with wild thyme and the occasional stubborn goat. Sandal bounds ahead, pausing to sniff at every interesting rock. You reach the top, breathless but exhilarated, and find the shrine. A simple stone altar, weathered by wind and salt, overlooking the endless blue of the sea. You place the basket on the altar, arranging the shells and glass with care. For safe travels, you whisper, and for the return of lost things. You sit for a while, watching the waves crash against the rocks far below. The wind tugs at your hair, and the sun warms your face. You feel a sense of peace, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. Sandal lies beside you, his head on your knee, eyes half closed in the sunlight. Here's a joke for the morning. Why did the Greek hero bring bread to the shrine? Because he needed a little divine intervention. You laugh, the sound carried away by the wind. The sea sparkles, the sky stretches on forever, and for a moment, you feel as if anything is possible. You stand, brushing the dust from your clothes, and make your way back down the path, ready to face whatever the day brings. As you return to the village, you realize that your journey has become less about finding your sandal and more about discovering the world, and yourself one step at a time. And as you walk, you can't help but think, maybe the gods have already given you what you need. Perhaps the real gift is the journey itself and the stories you gather along the way. The day unfolds with the lazy confidence of a cat in a sunbeam. You and Sandal wander through the village, the streets now bustling with life. Merchants hawk their wares, spices, woven baskets, and the occasional suspiciously shiny ancient artifact that looks suspiciously like a painted rock. Children dart between stalls, their pockets full of dreams and the odd pilfered figure. The air is thick with the scent of roasting fish, wild herbs, and the ever-present tang of the sea. You pause at a stall selling trinkets and charms, each one promising luck, love, or, at the very least, a good story to tell at dinner. The vendor, a woman with silver hair and a laugh that could shatter amphory, beckons you over. Looking for something lost or something found? She asks, her eyes twinkling. You explain your quest and she nods sagely. The sea and the river, they're old rivals. Sometimes what one takes, the other returns. Or so the stories say. She presses a small, carved dolphin into your hand. For luck, and for swimming in circles until you find what you're looking for. The thrill of the unknown and the joy of discovery fill you as you continue your journey, your mind buzzing with the possibilities that lie ahead. Here's your central historical fact. Dolphins were revered in ancient Greece, seen as messengers of the gods and protectors of sailors. Stories abound of dolphins rescuing shipwrecked sailors, guiding lost boats, and even carrying the souls of the dead to the afterlife. Some coins from ancient cities, such as Taras and Syracuse, even featured dolphins as symbols of good fortune. Historians still debate whether these tales were based on real encounters or merely the result of sailors' wishful thinking, having spent a little too much time in the sun. You thank the vendor and continue, the dolphin charm warm in your palm. Sandal, ever the optimist, finds a group of children playing by the water's edge and joins in, barking with delight as they toss sticks and splash in the shallows. You watch for a while, feeling a pang of nostalgia for simpler days, when the biggest worry was whether your sandals would survive a game of tag. You stroll along the harbor, the boats bobbing gently in the tide. Fishermen mend their nets, their hands moving with the practiced ease of people who have spent a lifetime coaxing secrets from the sea. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a sunburned nose, waves you over. You're the one with the missing sandal, eh? He says, grinning. Heard about you from half the village. Don't worry, the sea has a way of returning what's lost. Usually when you least expect it, and always a little worse for wear. He tells you about a time he lost his favorite hat to a sudden gust of wind, only to find it weeks later, washed up on the shore and claimed by a family of crabs. It was never quite the same, he admits, but it made for a good story. He offers you a seat on an overturned boat, and you sit together watching the waves roll in. Sandal joins you, shaking water from his fur and looking very pleased with himself. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some Greek coastal towns, it was customary to hold lost and found festivals at the end of the fishing season. Villagers would gather on the beach, bringing items the sea had returned, bottles, shoes, bits of driftwood, and the occasional message in a bottle. These gatherings were part celebration, part community cleanup, and part excuse for a good party. Scholars still debate whether more items were found or lost during these festivities, especially after the wine started flowing. You spend the afternoon helping the fishermen sort their catch, learning the names of fish you've only ever seen on painted vases. There's the silver-scaled dorado, the prickly scorpionfish, and the elusive sandalfish, which, as it turns out, is just a running joke among the locals. Careful, one fisherman warns. They're known for stealing shoes right off your feet. You laugh, grateful for the easy camaraderie and the sense of belonging that comes from shared work and shared stories. You feel like you've always been a part of this community, and it's a feeling that warms you from the inside out. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, the village prepares for the evening meal. Tables are set out along the harbor, laden with bread, olives, grilled fish, and sweet figs. Lanterns are lit, casting a warm glow over the gathering crowd. You find a seat among new friends, sandal curled at your feet, and raise a cup of wine in a toast to lost things, seen things, and the journey in between. The festive atmosphere fills you with joy and a sense of celebration, the air alive with laughter and music. Here's a joke for the feast. Why did the dolphin refuse to play cards with the fisherman? Because he was afraid of incurring a net loss. Laughter ripples through the crowd, and you feel a deep sense of contentment. The night is filled with music, the strum of a lyre, and the soft beat of a drum. You join in the singing, your voice blending with the others, carried out to sea on the evening breeze. As the stars appear, you realize that your quest has become a celebration, not just of finding what was lost, but of discovering the joy in every step, every story, and every shared meal. And as you look out over the water, you can't help but wonder what the river and the sea have in store for you next. The feast lingers long into the night, the air thick with laughter, music, and the scent of roasting fish. You find yourself swapping stories with villagers and travelers alike, each tale more improbable than the last. Someone claims to have seen a sea nymph combing her hair with a golden fork. Another swears he once caught a fish that sang the entire Iliad before wriggling free. The villagers listen with wide-eyed wonder, adding their own stories to the mix. You nod along, adding your own story of the missing sandal and the river with a mischievous streak. The crowd listens, rapt, and when you finish, a round of applause breaks out, though you suspect at least half of it is for Sandal, who has been charming scraps from every plate within reach. As the night deepens, the music slows, and the conversation turns to quieter things. You sit on the edge of the harbor, feet dangling above the water, the dolphin charm cool in your hand. Sandal lies beside you, his head resting on your knee, eyes half closed in contentment. The moon hangs low, casting a silver path across the sea, and you feel the gentle pull of sleep tugging at your eyelids. Here's your central historical fact. The ancient Greeks believed that the moon was a goddess Selene, who drove her chariot across the night sky, her light guiding travelers and dreamers alike. Offerings of honey cakes and white flowers were left at her shrines, especially by those embarking on journeys or seeking inspiration. Some poets claimed that Selene could grant prophetic dreams, though historians still debate whether this was divine intervention or just the result of eating too much cheese before bed. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the harbor lull you. The gentle slap of waves against the boats, the distant strum of a lyre, the soft murmur of voices, all blend into a lullaby older than memory. You think of Selene, her chariot gliding overhead, and wonder if she's watching you now, amused by your one-sandal quest. A soft splash draws your attention. You open your eyes to see a small boat drifting toward the dock, its lantern swinging gently. An older man steps ashore, his beard as white as sea foam and his eyes twinkling with mischief. He carries a bundle wrapped in oilcloth, which he sets down with grand ceremony. "Evening," he says, his voice as rough as driftwood. "I hear there's a hero in town who's lost something important." You blink, unsure whether you're dreaming or simply very, very tired. The older man grins, unwrapping the bundle to reveal a sandal. Not just any sandal, but your sandal, battered and a little worse for wear, but unmistakably yours. The crowd gathers, murmuring in amazement. "Found it tangled in my nets," the old man explains. "Figured it belonged to someone with a good story." You take the sandal, turning it over in your hands. It's been on its journey, you realize, carried by the river, tossed by the sea, and finally returned by fate and a very patient fisherman. You slip it onto your foot, the fit as familiar as an old friend. The crowd cheers, and someone starts a song in your honor. Sandal barks, tail wagging furiously, as if to say, "I told you we'd find it." The relief and joy of finding your lost sandal washes over you, filling you with a sense of resolution and happiness. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some Greek villages, it was believed that lost objects had a life of their own, wandering the world until they were ready to be found and returned. This belief was deeply rooted in the culture, shaping the way people viewed the world and their place in it. People would leave a door or window open at night, hoping their missing items would find their way home. Scholars still debate whether this was a practical superstition or just a poetic way to explain the mysteries of everyday life. Still, for many, it was a comforting belief that gave meaning to the experience of loss and recovery. You thank the old fisherman, who winks and disappears into the night, his boat bobbing gently in the moonlight. The villagers gather around, eager to hear the story of your sandal's journey. You tell it all: the river, the market, the temple, the sea, and the friends you made along the way. The tale grows with each retelling, embroidered with laughter and the occasional exaggeration. Sandal, for instance, is now credited with saving you from a pack of wild goats. As the night winds down, you find yourself at peace. The sandal is back where it belongs, but you realize that the real treasure was never the shoe itself. It was the journey, the people, and the stories that filled each step. You look at Sandal, who gazes back with the wisdom of 1,000 naps, and you know that, whatever comes next, you're ready. You feel inspired and hopeful for the future, knowing that you're prepared for whatever adventures lie ahead. Here's a joke for the end of the night. Why did the hero thank the moon goddess? Because she constantly shed a little light on his path. You laugh, the sound mingling with the last notes of music and the gentle hush of the sea. The village settles into sleep, lanterns flickering out one by one. You and Sandal find a quiet spot beneath the stars, your sandals side by side, and drift into dreams filled with rivers, adventures, and the promise of new stories waiting just beyond the horizon. As the first light of dawn gently awakens the village, you two stir from your slumber. The world is still and tranquil, as if the sea itself is holding its breath. Your loyal companion, Sandal, is curled beside you, his fur warm against your leg. You stretch, feeling the familiar weight of your two sandals, one a little more worn than the other, but both now a matched set. There's a quiet satisfaction in the simple act of slipping them on, as if the universe has finally decided to let you walk evenly through the world. You wander down to the water's edge, the sand cool beneath your feet, the waves whispering secrets only the early risers get to hear. The village is just beginning to stir. Fishermen readying their boats, bakers lighting their ovens, and a few sleepy cats stretching in the sun. You greet them all, feeling not just like a local but like an integral part of this community, or at least like someone who's earned the right to call this place a temporary home. Here's your central historical fact. In ancient Greece, the return of a lost object, especially something as personal as a sandal, was often seen as a sign from the gods. It was believed that such events marked the end of one journey and the beginning of another, a gentle nudge from fate to keep moving forward. Some even held small ceremonies to celebrate the return, offering thanks to Hermes, the god of travelers and finders of lost things. Historians still debate whether these rituals were intended to convey gratitude, provide closure, or serve as an excuse for another round of honey cakes. At the old shrine on the headland, the basket of shells and glass still rests on the altar. The sun glints off the offerings, casting rainbows across the stone. You add your token, a pebble from the river, polished smooth by your journey. Thank you, you whisper, not just to the gods, but to the river, the sea, the village, and every twist of the road that brought you here. This moment of gratitude fills you with a deep sense of reflection and appreciation for the journey you've been on. Sandal sits beside you, tail thumping softly, as if he, too, is offering thanks in his way. You sit together in the golden light, watching the world come to life. The air is filled with the scent of thyme and salt, the promise of fresh bread, and the distant laughter of children already inventing new games for the day. Here's your obscure cultural fact. In some Greek villages, it was customary to tell the story of a lost and found object at the evening meal, passing the tale around the table so that everyone could add their embellishments. The story would grow with each telling, becoming part of the village's living memory. Scholars still debate whether this tradition was about preserving history or simply a way to ensure that no one ever forgot who lost their sandals in the first place. You make your way back to the village square, where the day's bustle is beginning in earnest. Friends greet you with smiles and gentle teasing about your epic quest. The baker hands you a fresh roll, the fisherman offers a wink, and the children beg for one more retelling of your adventure. You oblige, spinning the tale with all the flair of a seasoned bard, Sandal playing his part with a well-timed bark or a dramatic yawn. As the sun climbs higher, you realize it's time to move on. The road calls, as it always does, promising new stories, new friends, and perhaps a few more lost and found adventures. You set off with Sandal at your side, your sandals firmly on your feet, your heart full of gratitude and gentle humor. Here's a final joke for the road. Why did the hero never worry about losing his way? Because he always followed his soul. You laugh, the sound mingling with the morning breeze. The village fades behind you, but the memories linger, woven into the fabric of your journey, a tapestry of kindness, laughter, and the quiet magic of ordinary days. And as you walk, you know that every step, whether shod or barefoot, lost or found, is part of the story. The river, the sea, the road, and the friends you meet along the way. These are the true treasures, the ones that never wash away. And now, as the gentle hush of morning settles over the world and the last traces of your journey linger like the softest footprints in dew, you find yourself strolling along the quiet shore, the sand cool and yielding beneath your feet, the air filled with the scent of salt and wild thyme, the distant laughter of children and the low, contented hum of the village blending with the rhythmic whisper of the waves. Each step is a gentle reminder of all you have found and all you have let go. The weight of your sandals perfectly balanced, the warmth of Sandals' fur at your side. The sun rises higher and higher, painting the sky in colors so soft and endless that you feel yourself drifting, lighter and lighter, as if the world itself is rocking you to sleep. The river's song and the sea's lullaby weave together in a tapestry of peace, every breath slower and deeper, every thought softer and quieter, until all that remains is the gentle certainty that you are safe, you are home. You are exactly where you need to be. This sense of peace and contentment at the end of your journey leaves you feeling calm and deeply satisfied.